Okay. All right. We're going to get started. And so hopefully by the time I finish introducing the center, people will be here who we're waiting for. Okay, we're going to let all the Zoom people in. Hi, Zoom people. Hi, Sophia. Thanks, guys. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Franklin, and I'm the program director of the Hudson Valley Writer Center. Sophia Bannister and I are so happy to have you with us today as we celebrate the Hudson Valley Writer Center reading series fall launch with Nicole Callihan, Sean Thomas Dougherty, and Jared Harel. If this is your first time joining us for a reading, welcome. We hope you continue to come to our online readings, classes, in-person readings, and events. Please check our website for the complete list of our offerings. We hope some of you will return to the center for our next in-person reading on Saturday, October 7th, as we welcome Rachel Haddis, Walter Ancaro, and Patrick James Errington, the latter all the way from Scotland. And we hope some of you will join us at the annual fundraiser for the Hudson Valley Writer Center, which this year will honor Rachel Eliza Griffiths and Herbert Haddad, and that will take place at Tappan Hill on Thursday, September 21st. Tickets are available now on the website, and for all of you who are students, there's a student rate. I want to thank our founder, Margot Taft-Stever, the board, our teachers, and our students who are the beating heart of the Hudson Valley Writer Center. We also want to recognize all of the foundations and organizations who support us, including the Bydale Foundation, the David G. Taft Foundation, NISCA, and Arts Westchester. I also want to thank my colleagues, Sophia Bannister, Misty Arnell, Leslie Zinnia, and Christina Papadopoulos for all their hard work. I have asked these three poets to read together today because each of them has a huge heart and the empathy required to be truly great writers. Each of them embodies Whitman's famous self-declaration about his work. I am the poet of the body, and I am the poet of the soul. Nicole Callihan's most recent book is This Strange Garment, Terrapin Press, 2023, which got a glowing review in Publishers Weekly. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming in, among others, American Poetry Review, A Poem a Day, Tin House, Copper Nickel, Kenyon Review, Painted Bride Quarterly. She has written or co-written 9 other books. In September 2020, she was diagnosed with stage 2 bilateral breast cancer and underwent surgeries and radiation therapy. Her latest book, This Strange Garment, navigates that diagnosis and treatment. She taught in NYU's expository writing for 20 years and now hosts informal and formal online poetry gatherings. Her work has been translated into Russian, Spanish, German, and Arabic. Nicole, like Sharon Olds, Marie Howe, and Ellen Bass, can take any ordinary moment and distill it into its essence. She is a poet of secular holiness, and to read her work is to become more deeply acquainted with your own self. Amidst the horrors of the pandemic, a democracy in peril, and aggressive cancer, Callihan's speaker spills over with hope, teaching us how to move forward. I write the same word over and over, and mostly that word is light. Please help me welcome Nicole Callihan.
Thank you. Wow, thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy to be reading with these two poets. So I'm going to read some poems from the book, and then I'll read a few new poems, and yeah. I don't know. I can try to just speak closer. Okay. I can do that. I can speak louder. Yes. Okay, I was with a couple of friends last night at Lost Lake. This is called At Lost Lake. At Lost Lake, the hands are not stopped at noon, are pouring clean water from a green pitcher, the vacancy in me flashing from the road, swimming pool, cable TV, park in back, the motor in and the two-hearted ale, the dragonfly. This afternoon, my friends have bare feet and the frogs are fighting. It is not lost on us that we will each die, one and then the other, organs hardening. I will make myself soft. I will own myself. I will watch the shadow of these leaves until the clouds come, and then I will wait for their shape to return. O inlet, O cove. Caitlin rows us to the middle of the lake, her slight, strong shoulders. We sit in the sun until we grow thirsty. Zoe has baked a cake for my 46th birthday. Will we sing? We are already singing. What's surrendered? Which road did we ride in on and which out? A black band on a straw hat, a green fly on the blue cheese. It's August again, the ache, the downpour. To be out of your head, out of your element, out in the elements, elemental, in and out and without and with and with and with. If a day is to eternity, as eternity is to a day, if evening, if when. Zoe says she's grown brave about picking up the parts of dead rodents, and we have all grown brave, haven't we? Brave and undignified, the end of summer collecting like sweat on the backs of our thighs. The extravagant stars. Everybody says the stars are dead. By the time the light reaches us, as if the light itself is not enough. Or maybe everybody says most stars are dead. Or some of the people say all the stars are dead, and all the people say some of the stars are dead. Is the sun dead? I don't know. I can't remember. 1 in 2 women can't remember 1 in 2 things. I have all these facts in my head, these claims about the world, caterpillars, supernovas, the days getting shorter, longer again, the riverbed, our great confluence, the buzz of that particular fly. Did you ever get my postcard from Mexico? I write the same word over and over, and mostly that word is light. I keep saying it seems very unlikely that this will kill me. But why unlikely? Medically speaking, you have a 1 in 500 chance of being born with 11 fingers or toes. I had a student once without thumbs. I wanted him to write a poem about it. He used his hands like lobster claws. He made me so sad, or I was so sad, and he reminded me of my sadness. He didn't want to write about his thumbs, he said. Probably he wrote about outer space. Some years later, I had a terrible late-term miscarriage and had to go to a terrible late-term abortion clinic with terrible, terrible lighting. Afterwards, they gave me a root beer flavored lollipop. I sat in a blue chair and sucked on my lollipop. I was a little girl and an old woman. I cried audibly. I was in my prime. 1 in 4 women will this. 1 in 8 women will that. 1 in 15 women will this and that. And yet, the death rate of stars is only 1 about every 10,000 years or so. meaning the naked eye will probably never see a dead star. You're looking into the past, yes, but it's unlikely, though not impossible, that you're seeing a dead star. Looking into the past is like sticking your thumb in the dirt of the Dixie cup. But a high-powered telescope changes everything. When I was writing about my terrible late-term miscarriage, I gave a reading on the Upper East Side. Several women came up to me to tell me I was brave. So brave, they said. I didn't want to be brave. I wanted to be brilliant. In hindsight, this strikes me as incredibly dim-witted. One woman will look back on something and feel foolish. Now I will take brave any day. I will take brave and fold it into my little kerchief and tie it to my stick and carry it to the top of the highest hill I can find. And when I get there, I'll rest my tired legs, unwrap my little hunk of pie from its wax paper, and stare up at the brilliant, extravagant stars, knowing that they are not dead, not even one of them, not likely, not dead at all, but living, pulsing, pressing their light as far as it can reach. To get to the other side, do you ever feel like an alien? I asked Cliff. He's arranging my body on the radiation table. Usually I apologize for my muddy boots, but today I am feeling more and more like my childhood alien abduction dreams were actually dreams about middle-aged cancer treatment. Like you've taken me from a field of poppies, I say, and are performing bizarre intergalactic experiments on me. Cliff laughs and secures my arm in the vise. He closes the 12-inch steel door behind him. Once I'm inside the radiation tube, I'm not supposed to think about Marie Curie's cataracts or her fingernails falling off or the fact that her casket is made of lead. No, instead, I repeat over and over, healing radiant light, healing radiant light. And when I get bored of repeating healing radiant light, I make up jokes instead. Horse walks into a bar with a camel hanging from his mouth. Bartender says, "Need a healing radiant light?" Cliff is on the other side of the glass. His voice booms through the speaker. "You ready?" he asks. I give a thumbs up. Why did the woman cross the road? To get to the healing radiant light. Cliff tells me to breathe in, deeper, deeper. That's it, he says, and hold. At least I get to be the human, I'll tell him if he comes back. Healing radiant light. Knock, knock. Healing radiant light. Who's there? And release, he says. I open my eyes to see the pine trees they've painted on the ceiling, to trick my mind into thinking I'm lying in a field on the earth, staring up through the green and into the spacious blue sky. The eye of the machine scans me, beeps, holds, and again, Cliff says, "How many women does it take to screw in a healing radiant light bulb?" One. The paper anniversary. Paper gowns are not as soft as cloth gowns, are not as soft as silk, as milk, which is only soft until it sours. Here in the wee hours I sulk, the bulk of my body, my thin skin, the membrane of my weak brain. After the fanfare, the hoopla, the careful decisions, sloppy incisions, I write about the violets gone blue, the violence, that roses are red, that also pale yellow. Hello, it's been 1 year. What have I to fear? These queer balloons, pop, pop, pop. Paper gowns are not as soft as cloth gowns, are not as soft as dirt, this insidious hurt, and this and this and that, that and that and that, a rat on the grave of a spouse, a mouse, two mouses, so mice, so fuzzy dice in a sky blue van. I should have been a man, and I was, and I wan and wane, am as sane as a sanitary napkin adhered to your big, fat, beautiful forehead. Bring me your dead. Let them dance in my bed. Let them swoon and spin and tap, tap, tap. Paper gowns are not as soft as cloth gowns, or are not as soft as dust. The uncle who cussed and threw bottles, his face of models, this pace of piecing, of piecemeal, quiet thrill, grown shrill, grown silent as a mole on your spine. Oh, you're divine in your shame, this blame. Your name is mud in my eye, a chicken thigh I licked, gnawed to the bone, this moan, a wishbone caught in my pale, clean throat. Paper gowns are not as soft as cloth gowns, are not as soft as water, as the eyelashes of my daughter, who perhaps I've disappointed, certainly anointed, the oils and creams, the comb I've mouthed 1,000 times, the dreams. What a mystery, this sealed vessel, this meal for worms. Oh, how we squirm in the face of disaster, a vase full of asters. It's not love I'm after, but after the aftermath, in which X approaches infinity, the serenity. See also my affinity for pain. Paper gowns are not as soft as cloth gowns, are not as soft as the skin of the pear, pelt of the bear, the felt thing, the svelte and sung, wrung out to dry, draped over the faucet, just so, you know, I've lost it all, or am losing, unloosing a viper, candy striper, sunbeam and swish, the unwashed dish. The woman at the sink is sinking, is thinking. To abandon a body is a different sort of song. Welcome fright, this flight, the sonorous water, amorous lover. What a lark, this dark, to couple and waft, drain these noodles. I wonder how many times I've said, brush your teeth, as if mattering begins in the head. We'll all be dead. We'll all be dead. Just brush your teeth and go to bed. So, and now I'll read some new ones. Do they want to come in? Yeah? You want to come in? Is it okay if I curse? Okay. Sorry, just in time, the cursing is gonna begin. Okay. Let me see. Okay. Hello, welcome. I apologize in advance for cursing, but it's gonna happen. Yeah. Okay, this is called these are new. A little sorrow in the title. I settled for the reverse narrative, the after ever happily. The water rippled, and I stood very close to it, having a conversation with myself. And our session the week before The handsome Dr. Greer suggested that if I weren't afraid of water, I'd likely drown. Touché, Dr. Greer. If you imagine humanity as the stained banister of the stairwell, in such that it's fairly easy to paint over a stain. Oh, hey, what's your name? You've got a little something in your teeth. I've been pleasant enough, my rage modest, my attempts at betrayal weak, picket fences, perishables. My husband used to call me a time bomb, but now he calls me sweetie. True story. You can call me anytime. Is your refrigerator running? Most very funny things are very true and obvious or a little mean, and many are both. The laconic careening. Where's Robin? Robin is with her rabbit. Where's Robin's rabbit? I bet you wish you knew. Oh boy, there was a lot of lice that winter. I woke up from surgery and the room barely had a window and my head was itching so bad. And I was like, Mom, if I have lice and I just had my breast cut off, that would be so fucking ridiculous. And she was like, Nicole, don't curse. You don't have lice. But I did. Now it's gone. Lots of things are. An intimacy with loss and other poems. Viewmaster. Inside, I see Toronto and the vicinity, a swale of songbirds, my mother's chest pains. How nice it is to click through the red stereoscope on a broken swing set, cribs when babies could still be laid face down. How soundly we slept, my Irish twin and me. No one loved anyone more. No one loved any more. No one loved anyone anymore. And thus my sojourn into sovereignty, to click through vellum and ink. Had I flung myself from the turnip truck, or had it flung me? And here I see you in the porch light. In memory, everyone peels an apple with a pocket knife, and the field is filled with violets, and the only violence is inside the mind. Bump, bump. Here comes the bride. There goeth the bride. Blue moon over the bouncy house. Little hungry girl in lederhosen. There's a photo of me from then. I look so hungry and frightened and sick that it makes me snort. I say, this is when I became a poet. I say, you've got cotton candy where your brain should be. I've got a hankering for a hankering, mayonnaise sandwiches and buttermilk. Click. A crane collapses. Click. New Jersey won't accept my passport. Clickety clack, clackety clack, cackalacky feathers bursting from my snout. I'm out or in, nudge, nudge, cough, shudder me in me shudder. Treaties from the elliptical. Of the planetary nebulae on my way to the gym, I have little to say. You, the cloud on my morning walk, but good cloud. For so long I walked on the sunny side of the street, couldn't understand, then cancer and aging and the heat, and I wanted a parasol. I wanted the world not to be overheating. I wanted water or a sports drink, wanted not to have seen the dead fish on the shore, this terrible television show with no sound, only subtitles as I move my arms back and forth, my legs hum, head, chickens, heart. I was going to write you back to say, oh, this I figured out. But then Eva brought me an envelope. I said, who's it from? She said, I don't know. The handwriting is so beautiful, I can't read it, she said. Cursive K, so much lost. How will the mail carrier know? Last night, a happy hour Zoom, and so and so, and such and she and he, and everyone, it seems, with someone dead or dying. And Dee said, "This is not happy hour. This is a death call." And we laughed like, oh, we are still alive, laughing, like how alive people can laugh and eat apples, kiss, pretend run on pretend sidewalks, sweat, cry, sing, though I'm not much of a singer, but after sit-ups did read a poem about a peach, felt it dripping down my face, walked home in the shade, shaky legs, and the sky spinning with half a mind to fall. I'm reading this because I'm reading with two men, so I'm going to read my baseball poem. It's called Batting 100. My hot yoga teacher says, if you leave your right palm facing upward, I will place a cool towel in it. I leave my right palm facing upward. He places a cool towel in it. It is hot yoga. He is a hot, hot yoga teacher. I've decided not to climb on the elliptical to watch Sex and the City reruns. I will not mourn the loss of late 90s NYC. Not today, I won't. I will go to hot yoga and listen to the soothing voice of my hot, hot yoga teacher. In Downward Dog, he presses my hips. There you go, he says. There I go indeed. But he is terrible with metaphors. He makes me wonder if everything is a metaphor for everything, or if nothing is a metaphor for anything. I drape the cool towel over my eyes. I am a corpse. He waves incense over the class. I want you to know, he says, no matter how you feel, you're all batting 100. And because my first celebrity crush was Dale Murphy, and because as a fifth grader, I was a diligent dugout baseball scorekeeper, the smell of Jeff Leatherman's juicy fruit and his father's deodorant and all those tiny diamonds. And because that one spring I followed the Cubs because my lover loved the Cubs. And I thought if I could feel joy when my lover felt joy, or disappointment when my lover felt disappointment, the popcorn, the breeze, the seventh inning stretch, because of these, I knew that it is not 100 one wants to bat. Not even close. Now, my still sort of hot yoga teacher asks us to wiggle our fingers and toes like little worms, my yoga teacher. And yet, perhaps 1 out of 10 is not so bad. Perhaps 1 out of 10 is really just about right. Perhaps I am the ridiculous being with the unruly wielding of metaphors. I am humbled. 1 out of 10. I am a humbled little sweaty being on a giant floating rock. 1 out of 10 precisely. Namaste, my hot yoga teacher. Nama fucking stay. May we all bat 100. Time. Of all the social constructs, I think I love time best. How this morning, which I could call morning, I did morning things, shuffled around in my morning gown, had not woken to a morning alarm because my body is like morning every day come morning. So no need for an alarm. Light through a window will do, or even not light. The threat of light through a window will do. And my body being my second favorite construct, or having been my favorite construct when it was young and favorited, though now I think my favorite of all constructs is language. I like how if you hold a page at a distance, it can say any old thing, but come close and I might be offering an image, say, of my mother on the top of the stairs, or at the bottom of the stairs, the top 43 years ago, the bottom only 3. So I guess I'm thinking about language as a written construct. Anna used to tie her books in a yellow ribbon and carry them in a basket on her bicycle. I love remembering her in the village. I love how we suspected she and Michael were lovers. I less loved when her husband hung himself in the garage, how she changed her ribbon to a gray one, didn't she? Do you love me? And if you don't, why have you read to the bottom of this page? It's evening now, or not evening, but the sky is so gray that the afternoon seems to be evening. Is loneliness a construct? Snow? The soup simmers.
I'm at a
After
poetry
I eat
reading.
it,
You what?
I'm at a poetry reading.
Oh, you are. At a poetry.
This is Nicole reading now.
we are.
Hi, I'm sorry to interrupt from Zoom again, but we can't hear the reading. Jennifer, can you hear me?
Did you fix it?
We can hear you now.
Okay, well, this has certainly been the most interesting reading that we've ever had here at Hudson Valley Writer Center, and maybe a sign for the universe that this is our last Zoom and in-person hybrid reading, apparently, unless COVID goes crazy again, and then we'll be back with this format. Okay, sorry, Nicole, for the end of that moment. And it means that everyone on Zoom will have to buy Nicole's book to hear that last poem about gratitude. Okay. Thanks for hanging in here with us. Jared Harel is the author of Let Our Bodies Change the Subject, selected by Kwame Dawes as the winner of the 2022 Raz Shoemaker Prairie Schooner Book Award in Poetry. Just out September 1st, September 1st. And Go Because I Love You, Diode Editions 2018. He has been awarded the Stanley Kunitz Memorial Prize from American Poetry Review, as well as the William Matthews Poetry Prize from Asheville Poetry Review. His poems have recently appeared in 32 Poems, Beloit, Harvard Review Online, Plowshares, Poem a Day, the Southern Review, and The Sun. He teaches at Manhattanville and the Writers Circle, plays drums for New York City-based rock band Flying J and the Ghost Robber, and lives with his family in Ossining. Like Edward Hirsch and Jane Hirschfield, Jared embodies Simon Weil's maxim, attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. The poems in Jared's brand new award-winning collection, Let Our Bodies Change the Subject, he examines everyday incidents and activities and elevates them to prayer. From the speaker's excursions to the aquarium in Coney Island and a fall visit to Washington Irving's house to seeing his father anew, transported in his daily prayers, Harel shows us what's important behind each mundane moment and ensures that we look at our own life with greater care. This collection is one of the most consistent manifestations of Virginia Woolf's theory of moments of being. As Hilda Raz says, each clear and short poem deals with the unimaginable and imagines it. Please help me welcome Jared Harel.
Hey, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Nicole. That was brilliant. Really happy to read with Nicole and Sean. Happy to see all you here. It's kind of launches are interesting. Hey, Mary. Nice mixes of people, friends, family. So this is thank you to the Hudson Valley Writers Center, and specifically to Jennifer, or Jenny, not Jen, Franklin, who really, when I moved to Westchester last year, was kind of the person who opened up this wonderful county to me and kind of was the point person for everybody I met who's a writer in Westchester. And really, it's thanks to her that I have a community here. So thank you. So I'm going to read from my new collection, Let Our Bodies Change the Subject, out from University of Nebraska Press just last week. It's a collection that's kind of knee deep in the strange, scary, sometimes magical world of parenthood. They show up a lot in it, to their great delight. It's also kind of navigates themes of love and loss, of feeling fortunate and lucky in this world, but also kind of like it's all going to hell, and how to sort of navigate those two things and how to raise kids in that world. I'm going to read 10 poems. There's 50 poems in the book. I'm going to read 10 poems from it. So if you don't like them, you can kind of keep track and know how many there are left. I'll start with this poem. So my friend Rosebud Benoni, a wonderful poet, she invited me to this project called Night Call, in which she asked us to reimagine discovery in a poem. So I didn't really know how to tackle that, reimagining discovery in a poem, but I did have these two lines that were in my head, and they were just kind of stuck in my head, and they weren't particularly promising lines, but I didn't know what to do with them. So I figured I'd use them as this sort of jumping off point to reimagine discovery. So that's what this poem is. There's also a tiny bit of singing in it, for which I apologize in advance. It's called All I've Ever Wanted. The almond milk has turned, flecks of foul snow slink in slow liquid. Not the discovery I had angled for this morning, but as my dad likes to sing like some Jewish Mick Jagger, you can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. Which is just what I croon to my two children, driving them up the wall, because of course all they want is to get what they want. a fifth scoop of gelato to play Minecraft till their eyeballs pixelate in their skulls. What humbling work to haul kids toward thoughtful, the kind in humankind like a foreign language on a stubborn tongue. Yet even as a toddler, my son would refuse a lollipop if his sister didn't get one. Still plucks an extra sticker, or can't ride an elevator without making a new friend, or some lady's day by praising her earrings, her sweater, or purse. My point about discovery has escaped me by now, though I know the old chorus for thwarted desire. My cereal will be dry, coffee taken black. I will try against hope to be better than myself, which is all I've ever wanted and everything I need. So this poem collection was written in Queens almost entirely. And so I'm starting heavily with Queens and New York City. This next poem goes all about New York City and Queens, Coney Island a little bit. And it took place over the course of a summer in which my daughter, kind of in her own way, through question by accurate, precise question, kind of came to understand death in her own way. And it's called Sad Roller Coaster. My daughter is in the kitchen working out death. She wants to get it, how it tastes and feels. Her teacher talks like it's some glittery gold sticker. Her classmates hear rumors, launch it as a curse when toys aren't shared. Between bites of cantaloupe, she considers what she knows. Her friend's grandpa lives only in her iPad. Dr. Seuss passed, but keeps speaking in rhyme. We go to Queens Zoo and spot the beakish skull of a white-tailed deer tucked between rocks in the puma's enclosure. It's just for show, I explain, explaining nothing. That night and the one after, my daughter dreams of bones, how they lift out of her skin and try on her dresses. So silly, she laughs when I ask if she's okay. Then, toward the back end of summer, we head to Coney Island to catch a Cyclones game. We buy popcorn and fries. A pop fly arcs over checkerboard grass. When past the warning track, the park wall, she sees a giant wooden spine. This brownish red maze traced in decay. She calls it Sad Roller Coaster, then begs to be taken home. They quite like being in the poems and perhaps like it even more in person. So as I was saying, we moved up from Queens just last year. This next poem is a poem about kind of getting out of the city, upstate a bit. It's so parenthood, as many of you maybe know, makes the world a scarier place. And I think this is also a little bit about that. It's called Good Star. I swear we hadn't seen a good star in years. Just mild brightenings in a skyline sky or neon decals on the kids' bedtime ceiling until finally we decided to drive upstate and park beneath a dome of wild darkness. The baby stayed asleep, a galaxy all his own, while you sang Blackbird on the curved hood, and our daughter blinked up from the edge of the field, head back as if rinsing out shampoo. The night was cold. Her spangly sneakers went black and still, and suddenly I knew that if we did not reach her, something would. Hushed and hidden, yet I failed to speak. Then God, how I raced to face my reward. So this next one's a really short poem. So I had a friend of mine, John Candell, he's a book designer, and he made these two broadsides for my book. There was this one and one other. And see, kind of matches the book. So they're pretty cool. Anybody who buys a copy tonight, get one of these for free as well. So I'm going to read it from his broadside. It's called The Sweet Spot. And the book pays a lot of attention to trying to be in the moment, to try to pay attention. I always think about what the poet Carrie Fountain says, her definition of writing. It's the practice of not giving away your attention, but keeping that attention with you where you are. And I love how her definition of writing has nothing to do with typing anything on a screen or writing anything in a book, but just the practice of not giving away your attention is in and of itself a kind of writing. And so the book kind of tries to pay attention as often as it can, even if it's just for a moment here or there. So this poem's called The Sweet Spot. On better days, I can tell this is it. We are well inside it. That misfortune implies a fortune to lose. I can see, despite it all, we have hit our sweet spot, the best it's gonna get. And yet, someone out there dreams she's a hummingbird and is fighting like hell not to wake up. Anybody keeping track of how many poems are left? All right. So one thing about kind of having kids and writing about your kids is that you start to think back to your own childhood. And so there's a lot of aspects in this collection that do that, that kind of look back to my old childhood, and also kind of, they kind of provide a new lens through which to see my own parents. And so my parents, my folks who are here actually make it up, make their way into the book now and then. And so I'll read a few poems in which, kind of look back and look forward in that direction. Anybody here familiar with Adventureland in Long Island? Okay, a couple of Long Island people. All right. So this poem kind of highlights Adventureland, and my son as well, and my mom. It's called Behind the Painted Guardrail. My mom and I take my son to Adventureland to ride every conceivable vehicle in identical slow circles. We watch as the fire truck keeps pace with a rocket ship, an old buggy with the Formula One racer. The park is pretty dead, so she lets him stay on. This teenage employee with a bright red visor and a look so vacant it quiets the soul. As a kid, I once proclaimed, when I get older, I want to work at Adventureland, to which my mother swiftly replied, when you get older, you want to own Adventureland. Turns out I did neither. But that exchange persists in the annals of family history as a testament to ambition and a healthy entrepreneurial spirit. In truth, my mother knew little about me, but loved both the me I was and wasn't, a devotion so bright I'd vanish in its glow. My son knows only left turns. He spins and keeps spinning in his blue police cruiser before seizing a bulldozer 6 feet away. My mom and I wave from behind the painted guardrail as he sways back and forth, steering and honking like he owns the place. The teenager yawns, flips a rusty switch. I want to tell my mother more than I can say. It's weird reading these poems with them in front of it. You write these poems like in your little desk and you don't show them to anybody, and then suddenly they're out in the world. And I'm like, I guess you read them now. Love you, Mom. All right. Okay, Abba, one for you. So do people know what tefillin are? So they're in Judaism, they're kind of these morning prayer rituals. They're used, and so basically, what? Morning prayers. Yeah, so it's kind of drawing on the religious Jewish practice of morning prayers. They kind of have these black boxes and leather straps that you wrap around yourself, and they have little verses from the Torah inside. And so my dad has been using tefillin every day for the last probably 35 years or so. We're not particularly religious or observant, but it's something that he's been doing consistently. And then I moved out of the house years ago after college, and I came in one day and saw him doing it, and I'd forgotten he actually did it every morning. And that surprised me that I'd forgotten. And I think the poem came out of that experience. It's called Tefillin. You think you know your life till you forget your own father prays every morning, unzips a velvet pouch to wrap worn leather strips about his left arm and hand 7 times around like dressing a wound. You forget he prays in greased blue coveralls before the workday rush of mufflers and brake pads, and that he prays on Sundays in sweatpants and socks. He sets a black box a centimeter above his hairline, slaps a yarmulke upon his skull, prays, then stops. You think you know your life, but forget your father has done this since you were 6. Since a thin, kindly rabbi spent a week in your home. How could you forget? It's true, your life no longer confides in you. For too long, you've been wary, screening its calls like a bookie you have lost all resources to repay. You forget your father prays the way he does paperwork, all alone and without enough light. He never makes a show of it, never once offered to teach you how. You think you know your life until the power sparks out one snowy December morning. So you climb your parents' stairs with your 2 children and laundry in tow, and there's a stranger by the curtains, his eyes squeezed shut, toes arrowed toward Jerusalem, bound in black lines. So I'm going to read a few poems that don't have my kids in them, just to prove I can. Actually, no, I'll just one. Okay. So, over COVID, my in-laws sold who are also here. Hello. They sold their childhood, their family house. And one of the things that was greatly debated was whether or not to keep the encyclopedias that they had. I think they wound up keeping one of 2. Anyways, it felt kind of sad to see like that the encyclopedias were possibly going, and it felt like a changing of the guard, but they weren't used very often. Anyways, this poem is an elegy for them. It's called Elegy for Recycled Encyclopedias. I see my son is doing the yoga now. All right. Elegy for Recycled Encyclopedias. In the end, every detail in the world couldn't save you. Not a thorough summation of medieval plumbing systems, nor the range and migration patterns of a Eurasian bullfinch. Not Bach, cuckoo clocks, or even Piaget's theory of object permanence did the trick. Amid the dim, dusty heft of entry after entry, each smoke-stained century, treaty, and canal, there was the hard data of your being redundant, a poor use of space. So after decades insisting you hold post between a lazy boy and an upright piano, we split the tight ranks of your regiment, your navy and maroon uniforms with gold foil trim. No, you weren't shocked. You knew all too well the way of phonographs and monocles, giant ground sloths and floppy disks. Grime grew from your uncracked spine, save nostalgia or the occasional Wi-Fi hitch. It's a miracle that we are, till the instant we aren't. You knew that too, a knowledge as mythic and dispensable as fact. And he's off. For those of you keeping track, I got 3 poems left. This next poem's a short poem I'm going to read. Jennifer told me she quite liked it, so that's one of the reasons I'm going to read it. Also, Audrey's here and just turned 7, so this is about a 7-year-old as well, so I'll read that for you as well. It's called Birthday. When my daughter turned 7, she missed being 6. She didn't want, she said, to leave her old self behind. And I, who had turned 7, then 8, and many more, sat on the edge of her warm twin bed and said, you take it all with you. You bring all yourselves with you into the future. I don't know what I believe, but I think she believes me. I told her nothing is ever lost. and kept repeating it till she rose in her nightgown in the morning dark. So 2 poems up. Thank you guys for listening. So most of the poems I write go through a ton of revisions. Like in my Word document, I'll like number them. So like I'll have, poem X 15 or 23 or so on and so forth. And so that way I kind of keep track. So I normally revise and revise and revise, but once in a while I'll write a poem that I just write and it's done. And this next one just has 1 document. And so it was kind of following one of the strangest conversations I'd ever been party to. It was a family dinner, and my kids were talking, and I did not understand exactly what they were talking about. If there's any gamers out here, you might have a better handle on things, but it was really strange. And I found myself sort of writing the poem in my head and on napkins, and then immediately went upstairs and typed it. And it was kind of a poem before I even knew what it was. And so that's this poem. It's called Survival Mode. It's a Minecraft poem. I didn't quite know that at the time, but it's a Minecraft poem. Survival Mode. Our daughter is killing villagers again. I'm upset because we'd talked about this, the villager killing, last week over dinner, and how we're totally not okay with it. Now here she is killing villagers again. It was different this time, our daughter insists. I just needed somewhere to sleep. She spears a single green bean, lifts it to her lips. You can't get mad at me for needing somewhere to sleep. Our son nods along, either listening or bouncing his bangs into his eyes. My wife and I glance at each other. Truth be told, we need more information. What was she doing roaming a village with nowhere to sleep? Was killing really the last reasonable resort? Couldn't she have bartered or built her own bed? We're set to interrogate when our son suddenly stops bobbing his head to ask what a villager looks like dead. Oh, says our daughter, setting down her fork. You know how dead cows look? All red after they fall to the ground? Same with villagers. They just die, and that's it. And then they disappear. All right, I'm going to read one more poem. I'll end with the title poem of the collection. Oh, now he's got the giggles. Okay. So this title poem was written after a mass shooting. I don't remember which one. There have been that many. But it's a poem that's kind of about, and one of the themes in the collection, I'll say, is kind of this twin impulse to both pay attention and also the desire to look away, and how, again, that idea of how paying attention is kind of our job as writers, and how we have to pay attention to the world kind of even when, or maybe even especially when, the world is a hard place to look at. So that's what this poem is about. It came out of a conversation I had with my wife that evening. And yeah, thank you all for listening. It's called Let Our Bodies Change the Subject. In the kitchen, with the kids finally asleep, and news of another shooting in the space between us, you confess you think death might feel like giving birth, the body insistent, having its way. You say you'd never been so at the mercy of yourself as you were on that bed, in that cloud-thin gown, and just the knowing it was coming, ruthless transformation. I have no good response to ruthless transformation, and so it hangs there above a bowl of tortilla chips and black bean salsa we've decided will be dinner. It lingers while a reporter frames chaos as developments, her shoulders rinsed in darkness and revolving red lights. I want to kiss you, build asylum inside you, let our bodies change the subject, the channel to cartoons. Before night pulls away down the flickering interstate, I want one ruined thing utterly redeemed. A death toll rescinded, a swastika removed, my uncle's melanoma caught early enough to cut, a beige Band-Aid halfway down his calf. It had looked, my aunt said, like little more than an ink spot. I didn't get nervous till it didn't wash out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jared. That was great. Thank you for reading the Killing Villagers poem and the birthday poem, my two favorites. Okay. What a great reading. Thank you for being such a great audience, too. And don't forget, part of the reason why we have free readings is so that everyone could buy books afterwards. And the Village Bookstore is here selling books. So you can do that after Sean's reading. And for all of you on Zoom, you can go to the links that Sophia is putting in the chat and you can get the books that way. Sean Thomas Dougherty is the author or editor of 20 books, including most recently, Death Prefers the Minor Keys, which is just about to come out from BOA Editions. But we have copies here today. And The Dead Are Everywhere Telling Us Things, winner of the 2021 Jacker Press full-length book contest, selected by Nicole Brown and Jessica Jacobs. His awards include a Fulbright lectureship to the Balkans and an appearance in Best American Poetry. Known for his dynamic readings, he has performed at hundreds of venues, universities, and festivals, including the Dodge Poetry Festival, the Old Dominion Literary Festival, and a tour across Albania and Macedonia, sponsored by the U.S. State Department. He lives in Erie, Pennsylvania, and has driven all the way from there for his beginning of his book tour. He comes to us now from Danbury, Connecticut. Sean Thomas Dougherty is the great bard of the American working man. His poems break the heart and heal it in the same poem, often within the same line. Work, illness, death, grief, poverty, and social injustice permeate the powerful prose poems in Death Prefers the Minor Keys. One of Sean's gifts as a poet is the empathy he extends to the broken world and to the reader. I go to these poems for consolation. His enormous humanity gives me hope. Thank you so much for being here today. Please help me welcome Sean Thomas Dougherty.
Poem made of fragments, written on various pieces of paper, napkins, social work documents, med order forms, the back of med supply receipts, gas receipts, and some after waking from dreams. I did not kill myself today. It was a Tuesday. And since you are reading this, neither did you. Neither of us were sent to war or had to hide in the basement. No one was standing under the streetlight at 3 a.m. I tend to walk with my hood up, my head down. I tend to take my hood off if I see a cop. I tend to look away from bridges. The day the crocuses arrived, I feel a part of me glanced up at the cardinal and flew away. Camus wrote, "The moment that Sisyphus lets go of the stone, there is a moment he is free." But I say, why doesn't he just sit down? Why doesn't he refuse to go on? Is there not a union in the afterlife? No wonder when we die, they used to say, he punched his clock. During the Balkan Wars, who was the cellist? Wait, I Googled it. Vedran Smailović, who brought a chair to the square in Sarajevo, sat down during the siege, and played Adagio in G minor. Death prefers the minor keys. Vedran Smailović is still alive. He's still playing in concert halls, but behind the veil, he is forever playing in the square as the snipers look into their sights. And here is the ghost girl running through the halls again. Where has she come from? There are moments it seems I cannot even spell my name, as if I myself have disappeared. Then I return. Sean, I write on the form that says, I watched over humans tonight, and no one died. Is everything I write about your absence, how it hovers above you when you bend your head to read? When I was a boy, I used to love to take apart old radios, not to see how they worked, but to see how they looked like a miniature city inside, with tiny streets, skyscrapers of tubes, bodegas of fuses. Once, years ago, I walked far out onto the ice. When I was out far enough that the world was only sky and clouds and frozen lake, I sat down. There is no anniversary for this day. I drive past the farmhouses. I am the sadness of horses standing in the rain. I learned to love you the way one learns to love the emptiness of winter fields. I tried to put you away in a drawer full of lost things. I found you in the coffee grounds this morning. And in this way, voices drift, labyrinthine, in emptiness, like a cathedral in my chest. I ramble along the tracks, a bit wary, a bit weary, headed towards nowhere I can name. There is nothing here to translate. Sentence by sentence, on this earth, we are bandaged or bound to grieve. I lay down in the park, drowsy in the afternoon light. I begin to disappear, leaving behind this weight I've carried. If you were to try and find me, all you would see in the grass is the hollow my body made. The man brings me a bowl. One, two. The man brings me a bowl and asks what he should put in it today. We do this every Saturday morning. He told his caseworker he wants to collect things to help with his memory. So she recommended stamps or coins, but somewhere along the chain of command, probably from the occupational therapist who was kind of brilliant, it was changed to have him collect things weekly. So now every Saturday, the man brings me his bowl, a big plastic bowl, and we decide what he will collect. Last Saturday, it was raining, so he grabbed his umbrella and went outside, and when he returned, he proudly announced he has collected a bowl of rain. Then he raised it to his lips and drank. Another Saturday, he returned with a bowl of earthworms he had carefully collected from the sidewalk. And no, he did not eat them, but we saved them, and he went fishing with his stoned brother, who came to visit the next day. And they returned with a bucket of fish they wanted me to clean. But I said, we can't do that. State regulations, I lied. I had no idea how to clean those fish. And even sure they were edible, they looked like deformed carp. One had 3 eyes. In June, the man returned with a bowl of dandelion heads. It looked like a bowl of miniature murdered sunflowers. In May, I saw him stamping the ground, and he brought me a bowl of dead ants. No, he did not eat them. One day, to my horror, he returned with a bowl of tiny shards of broken glass he found in the greenhouse we abandoned after a big oak fell on it years ago. But most days, he finds sticks, a few stones, maybe some candy wrappers that someone dropped, a plastic ring, a rusty spring to an unnamed thing, a handful of bent nails, once a brown shoe maybe a resident had taken off and left on the grass, too many cigarette butts. He said, I hate litterers. Most of his finds were the simple detritus that a child might pick up and put in a box of treasures. Only this is a 46-year-old man out getting his exercise, a little son, working his memory. Many days he finds nothing. One Sunday, he simply sat outside, returned empty-handed, and said, I brought you a bowl of my prayers. In autumn, when the world was dying, he brought the expected: ruby leaves, acorns, a bowl of helicopters, maple seeds, unhusked buckeyes we opened and then shined and roasted. Laurel branches, he said, we can weave into a crown because I'm kind of like Jesus. I came back from the dead. In late summer, he went out, said it was too hot, and sat down by the raised flower beds along the edge of our building. A half hour later, I saw him outside talking to himself. And when he turned, it looked like he was breaking off sprigs of forsythia, husks of milkweed, maybe to make a bowl of flowers. And later, I saw some slight motion of light or wind in his hands. What the hell is that? I walked outside. What do you have there? See, he said, a bowl of Lepidoptera. And I saw, contentedly fluttering among the sprigs of golden forsythia, were the black and orange wings of 2 monarchs and a tiger-striped swallowtail. How in the world did he get them to stay? And you are the butterfly whisperer for sure. In winter, he brought bowl after bowl of snow to the porch. What are you collecting there? I asked. Snowman heads. One winter night after dinner, when it was wicked cold out, I saw him emerge from his room with his coat on. I just thought he was going out to smoke. I watched him standing still. Then I saw he was holding his bowl above his head. He looked sculptural, this gentle, fat, 6-foot Italian man who had survived being hit by a truck, years of rehab, who had to relearn how to tie his shoes. If ever I was moved, it was in that moment. Soon he would be able to leave and return to life with his older sister and her husband. Every day he was getting better, naming more things, remembering what week, month, year it was. His sense of time was good. He would still need help. He couldn't do a shopping list on his own, and numbers for some reason never added up anymore. And sometimes he thought he was 20 years younger. He'd still need help with his insulin, but he could fix himself a sandwich. He liked to watch the news. He forgot names, but who doesn't? Soon he would walk away, back towards something, part the past and part a future we all could hope for, but no one except him could have scripted. If I could give him a bowl to take back with him to the world, what would I put in it? a bowl of patience, a bowl of mercy, directions to forget his life before, or to remember, or even to find comfort in the absences he has gained, absences he can fill each day with a bowl of new, unimagined gifts. When he returned from the yard that evening, he was staring down between his hands. His eyes were strange and distant. I asked, "What do you have there, Em? I don't see anything in your bowl. It's empty." "No, it's not," he said. "What? Are you blind? Can't you see? Can't you see my bowl of starlight?" That's it. One more. 5 a.m. after reading Rothke. My daughter often wakes and cannot sleep. She talks to me in the bedroom doorway, chattering about her nose is stuffed, or she had to pee, and now it is still dark, though day approaches. She hovers in the doorway, saying she thought I was at work, didn't know it was my night off. What day is it? And I hesitate to remind her of the afternoon's obligations, her school meetings and work. Let the morning unfold, the blessed dark recede around her easy before she must give her hours to strangers who do not love her. She is wrapped in a blanket. She is nearly tall as her mother, who is too often, like this week at the hospital, wrapped in her own quilt of pain and absence from our arms. But her mother will return, as we all return to any place that is as far from harm as we can help, which isn't much these days. Our daughter closes the door, but always after I say the words we all say in our language that mean we are each other's despite anything. She says a few more sentences quietly that I can't hear through the door, chattering away as much to herself as to her father, me who has trouble hearing her high-pitched sing-song phonemes that travel through the hall. I often wonder if it is a kind of riddle only she can answer, one I hope we can never fully solve, a chattering kind of something part, perhaps the wake of the other world we carry upon waking, the way I wish I could translate what the morning doves inscribe upon the dew and dawn, now offering their notations across the trees and wires as our daughter sits to read, quietly chirping a perfectly familiar noise like the birds that is not quite singing, more light yellow and magenta mixed with cerulean and texture, grass and tulip leaves, letters of twigs and pieces of trash entwined, weaved into nests the not yet born. They warm beneath their wings. A kind of writing on the wind is what language can never fully reach, as our daughter will remain unknowable. She says a sentence or two, punctured with the sound of her own feet walking away. A few syllables, merely noise, fragile as a blue egg, a sound so small I could hold it in my fist. That's enough. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Sean. Thank you to all of our readers. What an amazing reading. Thank you, Nicole, for coming all the way from Florida for this reading. Thank you to everyone on Zoom for tuning in. Please buy the books from these amazing writers. I've read all of them. You will not be disappointed. Village Bookstores here. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Please have something to drink, something to eat. And come talk to the poets and they will answer your questions. Okay. Thank you so much. See you next time in person and at some point again, I'm sure, on Zoom. Thanks, Sophia.